Right. Welcome, everybody. A warm welcome to those that are just joining us and to our wonderful panelists. This event today is part of a new series that we've launched called W.Talks. And we are speaking to 3 beauty experts, all who work in different parts of the beauty industry, to give us their insights around what it's meant to come out of the pandemic, the trends we should be looking for, challenges that they've navigated, but also just their general insights. And it's going to be a really inspirational chat and conversation to have with 3 truly phenomenal women from our membership. So thank you so much, Karen, and Debbie, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
I would like to give you each an opportunity to tell us about yourselves and your businesses in your own words, so that we can really do justice to the expertise that you have. Karen Sirett-Kelly, can I start with you, please? Over to you.
Of course you can. Hi, everyone. My company, ESM, stewards and manages the visual identity for lots of well-known, loved beauty and fragrance brands that you will know, clients such as Dior and Givenchy, Maison Francis Kurkdjian, across all of their retail estate. That's in the UK and ROI. That's producing everything from beautiful lightbox graphics to on-counter props, very complex visual merchandising. And we also create for those brands a variety of window displays, promotional sites, and we dress a whole myriad of event spaces as well, all sorts of quirky locations, from hidden wine cellars to festival tents, to you name it. We've kind of been there really with our brands. So yeah, we do a variety of things to make sure that the brands really stand out and look their best when they're interacting with customers.
Thank you so much, Karen. And I mean, clearly you have a real insight into all of the hard work that goes into the background of a consumer experience in the beauty industry.
And the bags under the eyes from working through the nights.
Karen Cummings-Palmer, can I hand over to you? Karen is the founder of 79 Luxe. And I think she's frozen for now. Debbie, can we go on to you? And I think Karen will come back to us.
Yeah, no worries. My name is Debbie Trumper, and I'm the founder of Debbie Trumper Consultancy. We specialize in beauty, luxury brands, wellness brands, and we basically try and navigate and help brands get to market. We also help them and guide them through what is quite a challenging time when if it's a new brand, then trying to focus their energies and what's important. Or if it's an established brand, trying to see how we can help with them in trying to get to market.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Debbie. And Karen Cummings-Palmer, can I hand over to you? You're on mute.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Michelle. I guess at the core of what I do is integrative health and nutrition. I specialize in age management and beauty from the inside out. And I have, a ton of tools that I use, from exceptional supplementation to obviously core nutrition and movement. I see private clients and corporate clients and do things like wellness menus, etc. And I had this amazing toolkit, and something was missing, which was really exceptional body care that could particularly treat my sort of sensitive, eczema prone and now aging skin. So I also developed a brand which is serious, intentional luxury body care called 79 Luxe.
Thank you so much, Karen. And I'm a massive fan of 79 Luxe. In fact, I have a tube on my desk. I use the hand cream all of the time. So it's really an honor to have all of you here today to share your different perspectives on the beauty industry, because you all come at it from a different angle. And I think my first question is, we're coming out of a very difficult period, unprecedented, really, in terms of how we've all had to navigate challenge and continue doing business. And I wonder, not to focus on negatives, but if you could each possibly share a challenge that you've had to navigate over the last 2 years, and maybe something positive that's come out of that? Karen Sirett-Kelly, can we start with you? I'm going to go Karen from ESM in future.
Oh, Karen Kelly, just shorten it. That bit comes from my husband anyway. It's the difficult bit. I guess for us, actually, I mean, because our business is so obviously connected to retail, one of the biggest sort of impacts that we've had was actually the store closures that have happened. So obviously the loss of Debenhams and the scaling down of the John Lewis and House of Fraser networks has meant that our customers, although we're still doing campaigns with them again now, thankfully, the estate shape has obviously, you know, contracted. And that was sort of interesting because you're kind of like, okay, you know, obviously that potentially could have meant a drop in turnover. But what we've found is that the brands are actually making each of those store locations work harder for them. So actually what they're wanting to do is create more interactive items, more displays, more educational pieces that call out to to the customers within the store. So we've actually had to kind of pivot a little bit in terms of probably the mix of what we were producing was maybe 75% 2D and maybe 25% 3D. And now there's a much more of a switch. So we're doing much more kind of in terms of props and builds and these kind of things, because every brand wants to make that space in the retail stores work harder for them. So that's been quite interesting because, you know, it's almost like we're 15 years old as a business and you're still constantly evolving. You know, businesses don't stay still. And we're having to kind of adapt to that. But actually, that's been really interesting. And in some ways, it's been quite reinvigorating because we've got new challenges and we're being pushed to be more creative all the time. So, yeah, it has been interesting. We've definitely seen a change in the mix of what we're producing for clients and the things that our clients are demanding. But it's taken us to some amazing places. I mean, we've just recently done a really amazing pop-up site with an interactive photo booth in H Beauty Milton Keynes with beautiful live roses, and you know it's great because it's actually making us take on even bigger and better challenges. So yeah, it's all fun at the moment. It's different, but it's different and good in a good way.
I mean, do you think in that sense, maybe retail needed a bit of a shake-up anyway? I mean,
maybe, yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it was quite prescriptive. Maybe we were doing the same things all the time. So actually now we are getting asked to do different things. And I think, you know, every customer is looking for that. They're looking for something extra. You know, all their old habits have been broken. So they want newness. They want more education. They want to understand more about what they're buying and the story behind the brand. So, yeah, I think it's been good, actually.
Karen from 79 Lux, you have a very strong online presence and you sell direct to consumer, but you also sell through retail spaces. What's your perception of how consumer demands or what they want has changed over the last 2 years?
Well, I mean, we were only a year old before COVID hit, right? So it's, you know, we really sort of didn't have the pattern. We were just getting going. But I will say that, you know, we'd actually launched on Cult Beauty. So thankfully we had that sort of reasonably, you know, strong online retail presence. And I think that was a real saving for us. And certainly I think in terms of the stores that we're in, you know, that kind of high-end luxury stores, a lot of people that are not local, you know, relying a lot on people flying into the country, you know, I think that would have been really, really tough for us if we hadn't been online. But I think that, you know, skincare generally felt like I mean, skincare has done pretty well relatively well throughout the pandemic because we were new to the game and we didn't have very much to build on. You know, that wasn't necessarily it wasn't necessarily a growth period for us, but we stayed in the game because of that, because I think people were really looking for a more holistic experience. And I feel like skincare feels like the perfect intersection of what we think of as traditional beauty and traditional health. It really is about looking after your body in a holistic way. And certainly, you know, our focus is body care, taking care of the skin beneath the neck, not just what's on show. It's not just about, you know, you know, obvious beauty, right? It's just about really taking self-care to another level. So I think that has changed. So as we emerge, I think it's, you know, we've been able to be part of that conversation, which has been great.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, Karen, about that, you know, our refocusing on our health and our wellness and how beauty plays a role in that on a very holistic level, because we were forced to consider our health over that time. You know, there was a spotlight on it suddenly, and it did, I think, get a lot of people thinking about how well they were looking after themselves. You know, skin deep, but also beneath that, which I know you have a lot of experience in that industry as well, you know, from a nutritional perspective and beauty from the inside out. But, you know, fortunately for you, your products are really well placed to benefit from that shift and how we are thinking about looking after all of ourselves rather than just our faces.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we're saying we're taking self-care seriously, then it shouldn't, you know, of course, there are health benefits of putting on a bit of lipstick. I mean, I still absolutely believe in that too. But if we're really saying we're taking self-care seriously, then it's got to be beyond, you know, just what, you know, a few people might get to see. So yeah, I think body is going to just be an increasingly important sector. And also it's about, you know, because we are doing other things, because we are, you know, we're embracing movement. A lot of people have some basic knowledge around nutrition. Actually, a lot of people are moving into their 40s and 50s and 60s and beyond in actually relatively good shape, you know, with a relatively high level of consciousness about that. They haven't necessarily taken care of this, you know, the body, the skin on the body. So yeah, I think it's an idea whose time has really just come.
Thank you. And Debbie, can you share your insights into some of the challenges that you've navigated over the last 2 years and what opportunities have arisen from that for you and the clients you work with?
When I was listening to Karen Kelly, I was sort of thinking ditto, because we're in sort of the same sort of line of work, but, you know, things that you were saying was sort of resonating with me. I suppose initially for me, it was all about actually, right, I'm going to take stock of me and my business. That's what my initial thought was during the pandemic. And, you know, how can I gather my thoughts and actually sort of learn more? So initially, in that sort of first year, I sort of joined every association, every sort of webinar, anything that was happening. I sort of really sort of took hold of that so that I could sort of take the time when business wasn't as busy, if you like, to try and learn and educate myself more. So that was the sort of first step. And although it was a challenge because business had dropped off slightly, there was still, you know, we were still keen. I was still keen to sort of think, right, okay, how can I best use this time? And I think coming through it, it was also really evident that everybody had lots of drive. I don't know about anybody else, but I was sort of buzzing. I think it was buzzing to try and get back to normal, but also buzzing because we've had that time to sort of take stock of ourselves, learn, and then sort of that generates sort of new ideas and thoughts for going forward. So I was desperate to sort of get going and sort of get back on board, you know, with hopefully retail opening back up. But certainly sort of going forward, there are, I think now, so many different challenges. And as Karen was saying, you know, what it's done is sort of highlighted, I think, to everybody that wants to take new things on board, that there are lots of different opportunities in different angles, in different ways that perhaps none of us would have thought about before. You know, whether that means going off and is, you know, the word that we all use is pivot into a slightly different direction. Yeah, so I think for me, the pandemic was one thing and it was awful. But actually, I think if you sort of took hold of it by the scruff of the neck and thought, right, okay, how am I going to get through this and what am I going to do? And then sort of work forward from there. So yeah, so we're really excited about new business going forward. Everybody has lots of new ideas, new angles. You know, obviously for us and our business, it's key for our brands that we work with to get into retail. And that's in its own challenges, seen lots of different changes. And I think it's just made retailers stand up, you know, and think, God, you know, we can't be in this position again, especially if they didn't have an online presence as well. So I think it's really, it's really give everybody a good shot that we needed to really reevaluate and look at our business.
You all have businesses of different stages in terms of how long you've been in business. I would love to hear your, and this could also be, I guess, positioned as advice to somebody coming into the beauty industry. You know, what's been the biggest lesson you've learned, business lesson you've learned, that you would want to share with somebody else considering launching a business now? Karen from ESM, will you go first?
Gosh, I mean, there's so many really, and I think you know, to say that you've, you know, like you say, we've been going quite a while now, and to say that you know everything, even now, it just isn't the case. Every day is a new challenge, and every day you learn something different. But I think it's just about being really honest with what you're doing and with yourself, being true to what you want to achieve and what you want to put across, whether that's, you know, in terms of a brand that you're building or something different. With us, we're obviously more of a service business in a way. We're supporting other brands, but we, you know, we do that with a lot of heart and a lot of passion. So, you know, we sort of take ownership of those brands, and we get excited when we see them, you know, out and about, and we support them in lots of ways. So I think it's about really being true to yourself and being very clear about your goal and your mission within the business. And the other thing in terms of advice is just to keep on keeping on. I mean, just keep persevering, because again, you know, every day will be a challenge. You know, like you say, the last 2 years, I mean, that was like something out of a movie. Who could have expected that? You just don't know what is going to be around the corner. So, you know, even 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the line, there's always surprises, and you've just got to stay true, keep traveling in the right direction, and it will kind of come to you, I think. And the other thing, you know, I would say when you're starting out, you know, an organization like this one is a great one to have as well, because I think there's a lot of, you can go to a lot of business advisors and they might not necessarily actually have done what you're doing or actually have that much of a relevant experience. Whereas here, obviously, you know, in the women's chapter, you've got other female founders who are literally kind of have walked that mile in, you know, in the shoes that you are doing. So they'll know much more intimately, you know, what you're going to be facing or the challenges. So I think this sort of support network is another something else I would definitely recommend.
Oh, thank you, Karen. And I think that's something we've all learned over the last 2 years as well, is the power of community and the group mind, and having people that you can be vulnerable with when you need help. And, you know, even though you said someone might have walked the walk, but there's definitely something they could learn from you as well. You know, I think that mix of business stages and industry cross sections is really, really valuable. Debbie, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, I mean, again, ditto to Karen. You know, I think when you've set up your own business and you've been going at it a few years, it is keep on. You know, you know, you're going to have your peaks and your troughs, and it is basically just stick at it. It will come, you know, as long as you've got the passion and drive and the understanding. I think that's key as well. You know, is to just keep on and it will come. And if you don't know the answer to something, then as Karen's just said, you know, I joined the women's chapter during the pandemic. And again, for exactly the same reasons, because it was like-minded people. You know, I feel that we're in it all together. And I think what's also great is there's so many different businesses, you know, and those different businesses also give you new ideas and thoughts, you know, that perhaps wasn't even associated with your business, but actually it's just giving you that drive. And one thing I say to my clients is when, especially if they're new, and they're coming on board, and they probably look at me and think, oh God, did she just say that? Is you've got to have the drive and the passion. You've got to have extremely deep pockets, you know, and you've got to have the will to keep going, because it's not a quick turnaround and it costs a lot of money, you know. So it's just keeping on and on.
Thank you. And Karen, how about you? Because you have another business, and then you launched 79 Lux on top of that. Wow. So you've kind of, you know, a service-based business as well as then a product-based business. What is your advice to somebody considering taking the plunge?
I mean, I think that the key thing is to start. I know lots of people say you need to have so many things aligned first, and that would be so good if you could, right? But the one thing you will never be able to do anything with is, you know, the lack of actually starting. So I just think that's key, and certainly I think if we all knew everything ahead of time, I think so many people wouldn't start at all, because it is way harder than you could ever imagine. I think you're going to work a lot harder than you could have, you know, ever anticipated. I think it's relentless, but desperately rewarding. So I would just say, start, have somebody that, you know, you can have somebody or a group that can hold you accountable, that can support you, of course. And the other thing I would say is you are not going to be able to please everybody all of the time. So I think it's really key that you have got to be able to stand by what you do. So, you know, when questions are being fired at you, you've just got to be able to think that, you know, what you're doing is really key. And at a time where I think we have to raise our consciousness about, well, frankly, everything, I think it is irresponsible to put more stuff out there unless it can be really game changing. So for us, for 79 Lux, we decided that we wouldn't introduce anything unless we thought it was it was going to make a change, make an impact in category. So yeah, if I don't think it is the best thing in category that I have tried, doesn't mean everyone will agree, but at least I have tried, we're not bringing it out. So there's a real sort of level of consciousness around the product, and there's real purpose to it. So I would say find your purpose.
And, you know, I think that's so important, because possibly before, a few years ago, this conversation around purpose was, I think, considered by a lot of people to be a bit woo-woo. And the same for personal brand. And it's become so important now from a consumer perspective, but also integral to the success of businesses, that their passion is really aligned with their purpose, and that you are thinking very carefully about the contribution you make, you know, to the world. And are you bringing something that people really need and is not going to end up being wasteful? I think we all have that responsibility to think about our contribution and our impact, and how our business plays a role in that. So thank you very much for highlighting that, Karen. Karen from ESM, I wondered, I mean, you work with very established beauty brands, and you mentioned some of them when you were talking about what ESM does. Is there anything that you've kind of seen that those brands do well, or maybe not so well, that you think an independent brand would really benefit from knowing or hearing?
I'm trying to think of examples, but I guess the main thing I would say is I do think that there is definitely a space for newness. I think, you know, I think a lot of habits were broken or changed during the pandemic, and so people aren't necessarily automatically reaching for a Estee Lauder or a L'Oreal. They are shopping around and looking for something that's maybe a bit different, a bit more niche. I mean, certainly some of the more niche fragrance brands we work with, like Juliet's Got a Gun, and some of these ones are really kind of flourishing at the moment. And I think it kind of ties in a little bit with what Karen was saying about that kind of quality. Everybody is looking for quality. So whether it's quality of a product or quality of, you know, the story in terms of, you know, the origins of the ingredients and the, you know, the green credentials of the packaging and the clear messaging, you know, everybody is being much more discerning, I think. So to have something that really is telling a very clear story and is focused on the quality of the product and the quality of the brand, I think, you know, I think anybody can still have an impact and make a mark. Any brand coming through can do that. They just need to, you know, as Karen was saying, you know, kind of make sure that if they are putting a graphic into store, it's a great quality graphic. It maybe shows the right thing, but also the production is, you know, very high quality, but also it's produced in a very environmentally friendly way. You know, all of these kind of things, you know, you think about what you're using and why you're using it when you're doing your in-store displays. I mean, there's much, you know, we're thinking about that all the time. I mean, we have done for a long time. The print industry's always been quite green anyway, in terms of sort of stewardship of the FSC. But we're thinking about it all the time, more and more and more, you know, even down to things that we're shipping goods in, into how we manage our waste, all of these kind of things. So, yeah, I think there's still, you know, lots of opportunities there if you're focused on, you know, take a very qualitative approach, as Karen was mentioning.
And you touched there on the storytelling piece and you know, engaging consumers in that story. And I think it's definitely, it's been concreted over the whole kind of lockdown period, because I think people had a lot more time online to discover, and there was the shift that we were talking about, you know, with a focus toward wellness and self-care, but also sort of thinking about that if you're going to spend your money, that you would spend it on something meaningful, and something that mattered. And knowing the story behind a brand, and I think in many cases, and certainly for me, where there's a female founder or really inspiring story behind that brand, it really drives that engagement and customer loyalty and the chance that somebody would try your product. And I think that's been one of the really refreshing things that I think has come out over this period, is that there is that more focus on storytelling and people stepping out from behind their brands, and people wanting to support them and putting their money behind them. You know, we saw that whole surge in supporting local businesses and people really thinking about buying from their greengrocer. There's this awareness that we all as a community needed to support one another and spend our money in a meaningful way.
For sure.
And I agree, you know, from a brand perspective, you were talking about people wanting to try out new brands, but that's because their story is there.
Exactly. And that regionalness as well. I mean, you know, you've seen that very much with what Harrods are doing with their H Beauty offering. You know, although the West End is obviously always going to be the West End, you've got these much more destination luxury sites at Milton Keynes and Bristol, and you know, there's more opening this year. And one of the nice things in those stores as well is they often have a born and bred section as well. So, you know, if you are a local brand, you know, you haven't got to pretend to be something else. You haven't got to pretend to be global. You can champion the fact that you are born and bred from Northamptonshire or wherever it might be. So, yeah, I think that's really nice.
Debbie, you work with a variety of different beauty brands in the sector. What are you kind of seeing in terms of trends and the sorts of brands that are coming to you looking for help? You know, which brands are coming through the ranks and we'll be expecting to see in retail spaces soon or online?
I mean, as Karen said, you know, really, you know, a few years back, sort of being green was sort of big news, but actually now, you know, everybody is expecting every brand to have that, you know, under their belt, you know, and all the things that we've expected and grown up with, if you like, need to be there 100%. So it's not just good enough to be green or to have an unusual packaging. They need the whole package, so to speak. I think brands coming through are sort of looking at new areas, and certainly the storytelling part is really, really key. And also making sure that every touch point is being focused on. So it's not just on their website, it's just not in store, it's across all the different touch points. And also people, what we're sort of discussing with our brands is people like to see the founder, they like to understand the story and they like them to tell the story. So videoing, things like this, engaging with consumers, you know, so that they have a real understanding of the brand, more so than just seeing it on the shelf and you know, there's something on the box. I think it's really important that, you know, especially if you're a new brand, that you start gathering your customer from an early stage, so that you understand what the customer wants, and you're engaging with the customer at all sorts of levels. And then that will allow you to grow your brand and reach the levels that most brands want to get to, which is obviously in the big retailers. But the market is very, very huge. So it's very, very competitive. So that there's a long way to go, but I think it's key that you start from the grassroots and you engage with your customer.
And Karen from 79 Lux, you've obviously been through this whole process where you would have had to consider all of these things. Can you give us the kind of founder perspective of what it's like to take a brand to market, and possibly the pressures that you felt to consider sustainability and packaging and storytelling and, you know, channels and all of those things? I mean, from my perspective, because I don't have a product-based business, it feels overwhelming. But what was your approach to managing that?
I mean, it's a lot, right? And I still feel that we're very, you know, we're like a baby brand. We're just a really healthy, beautiful baby, but it's still very, very early days for us, and so much to do. But I feel that even though it's been hugely sort of almost overwhelming in terms of the hard work at times, it also, I must also say, there has been a flow to this. And I hate to sound, you know, too woohoo in California, but it does sort of feel like it was meant to be, because, you know, huge amount of hard work, but things have sort of kind of, you know, lots of magic has happened. I mean, you know, we only have 4 products, and it's an award-winning brand. Did I lose you?
No, you're back.
It's a multi-award-winning brand. We are in, you know, amazing retailers, very few, but, you know, we've got in places we wanted to be. So there's been a lot of magic and a lot of goodwill and a lot of support, I would say, for this brand. But it was really important to be able to tell the story, tell the authentic story. We obviously didn't do as much engagement as we would have liked because of lockdown. But yes, done quite a few, you know, events, on social media events. In terms of the packaging and the brand development, it was very clear. The name came from the fact that it has gold in it. So, you know, that was a very clear story. 79 is the atomic number for gold. Lux, actually, of course, it suggests luxury, but actually it's also a unit of luminous light. So there were things that were quite, I don't want to say easy is not the right word, but just felt like they were quite natural and flowed quite well. The packaging was, you know, in terms of sort of consciousness and environment, I don't think the packaging, I think it's really difficult to have perfect, right? But I think it's really good. So we use glass because we're interested not in just recycling, which I think is really problematic in itself, but being able to reuse. So it's first reuse, repurpose, and then recycle. But also we wanted to use biophotonic glass because it preserves the life force of the ingredients, and it allowed us to use less preservative. So everything had a meaning and a purpose. And it doesn't mean that we, you know, as I say, we're very early on in the journey. It doesn't mean that everything was sort of will tick every single person's box, but there is a reason behind everything. And I think that's sort of what has made it, what has helped with the flow, because of the level of consciousness behind everything. So when people say to us, for example, you know, why aren't your products put in additional boxes? You know, we'll say, well, it's not that we didn't think about this, we thought about this long and hard, but we really feel that people throw away the boxes immediately. And we really feel that, you know, the recycling is a bit of an issue. So we decided to do away with the boxes, but we're very, very big on how the product looks. and it being a luxury sensory experience from the off. So we were very big on the bottling and the gold foiling, etc., etc. So there's a reason behind everything, and I think that has helped with, you know, it's, as I say, it's by no means established, but sort of the beginning of telling the story of this brand and its positioning.
Thank you. And I loved what you said about flow. I think that's really inspirational, because to me it speaks to that being in the right place at the right time, not pushing things too hard, and that when your passion aligns with your purpose, that's often what happens. So let me just, we lost Debbie. She's back. Hi, Debbie. She's back. But yeah, so I thought that was really beautiful, Karen. Thank you very much for sharing that. I have a few more questions, but I would like to encourage anyone that's watching, because we have had a couple of comments. If you have questions for any of our speakers, please do pop them. I can't respond, but I can see your comments. And we will try and save some time for those at the end. I wondered if you could each share with us a business or a personal mantra that you live by, because I'm always fascinated by all of the women in our community and the female founders that I know, and senior women in business, you know, kind of what drives them, what motivates them, what is that little motivating statement that they go to. Karen from ESM, can I ask you to start?
Well, there's a couple. I think there's the keep on keeping on, which was something my mum used to say. But I think the other one, and it sort of sounds, it's just that sort of almost that kind of karma thing, like do good things happen. And I think that kind of echoes what Karen was saying. I think sometimes things do seem to flow well when, you know, if you're passionate and you're honest and you work hard, then other people kind of react to that, and then they will put their effort in for you, and they will be honest back, and they will maybe, you know, help you with something, and then, like you say, something fortuitous kind of happens from that collaboration. So it's, you know, if you project out your responsibility and your desire and your care and your passion, then I think that does end up getting reflected back, and then that hopefully that good fortune helps you kind of move forward. So yeah, I think that kind of do good things happen is kind of one for me as well.
I love that. Karen, 79 Lux, what's yours?
I mean, sort of, can I do a few little ones?
Yeah.
I mean, I think if not now, when is a big one, especially what we've all been through, right? I also think, you know, I think as, you know, that negative voice, I haven't done enough, I haven't done it early enough. I think being really conscious that actually, you know, sometimes you needed to go through a process. And I think, you know, oh God, wouldn't it have been, I could have done this 15 years ago when I was a bit younger. But actually, all the people I've met along the way, all the knowledge, all the experience, all the personal and professional experience have helped me with this journey. So sort of trusting a little bit in the time whilst getting on with it. And then the thing, you know, with all the stress and all the everything that, you know, comes at us every day,
Oh, we've lost Karen. Yeah. Should we go on to you, Debbie, and then we'll come back to Karen?
No worries. I mean, for me, it's you know, it's that keep on trying. You know, if you don't get it right, you keep trying. You keep on it. You know, it's passion. You know, for me, passion is the key. If you've got the passion, that allows you to drive forward. That allows you to carry on working hard. And nothing's easy. I think that's the key. Nothing is ever easy. If it was easy, we'd all be doing it. You know, so it is for me, keep on trying. If you don't get it right the first time, keep going at it. But obviously that comes from within the passion. So if you've got the passion to succeed and the passion to want to go forward, then that allows you to keep trying and going forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Debbie. So, Karen.
sorry about that. I was just going to finish with, I really encourage people to crank up their favorite tune and dance every single day for a few minutes. Everything feels possible then.
I love that. And you know what? Those kind of little unusual insights are like for me, they're the most endearing because you can actually imagine, like I could imagine you dancing around your kitchen. And all of those things feed into. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I can't share the title of it because it has a swear word in it. But it was about kind of positive vibrations and really, looking at what your default setting is, but trying to ramp that up as much as possible, because ultimately what that does is it increases the level of your default setting. The more that you consciously focus on positive thought, positive vibration, surrounding yourself with people that feed your energy, all of the things that we've sort of touched on in many ways today. And and I think definitely dancing around your kitchen or around your house when you need a boost is one of those things, right?
Again, ditto, whether it's a glass of Prosecco with my pal Lydia or, dancing around the kitchen with my husband, it is. And you're quite right, passion and drive, leads to, other things, in surrounding yourself with great people, not negative people, really just, gives you that chance to really thrive.
Yeah.
Well, and my mantra actually, or one of them, and I think this applies to both personal and business, is that you can always afford to walk away. And that relates to that, energy and positivity element as well, because if a relationship is not mutually beneficial and you're not making each other both feel good, doesn't always have to be at the same time, then in business or in life, then you have to assess whether or not that is serving you well. And there have been many occasions, with the women's chapter and with my other business, where I've had approaches that on the face of them look really good or sound really good, but actually when I've gone to my gut and sort of thought, you know what, this isn't right for me, that it's hard to walk away from those things because we're always encouraged to say yes all of the time. But actually it's really good to put boundaries in place and say no sometimes.
And that's quite empowering, isn't it? To actually say, no, that's not for me.
Yeah. Karen, we're talking about kind of my personal and business mantra. One of them is that you can always afford to walk away. And that, for me has been a big lesson around sort of setting boundaries and sometimes saying no, which can be difficult when we're all encouraged to always say yes. Especially in that sort of whole good girl narrative that we're supposed to say yes and do things to make other people feel happy. And that sometimes it's more empowering, as you said, Debbie, to say no and walk away and safeguard or ring fence our energy for the people and the situations that serve us better and pay into our bigger purpose. I wondered if you could each share before we start wrapping up, and also think about if there's anything else, a key message you would like everyone to leave with today before we end. That would be really great. But could you share who your female role model is with each of us?
Oh, gosh.
Do you have one to mind? If you don't, it's not a big deal because I always
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
It's I've always thought Michelle Obama, for me, is just somebody that's got the guts and determination. And if you haven't heard her speak, I mean, she's just phenomenal. And, and I don't think anybody listening to her would ever come away and think, oh, do you know what? That was boring. She just is phenomenal. Really.
Very classy.
Yeah, definitely. No, I was hoping someone would say Michelle Obama because she's definitely one of mine. And she exudes that kind of calm confidence, doesn't she? That I think many of us aspire to. Many of us have and don't realize we have. I might hasten to add. Karen, ESM, do you have anyone notable?
I can't think of one off the top of my head other than probably my mum, really. But I guess we all looked up to our mums, don't we?
Well, and in many cases they were the first female role model we had.
Yeah, absolutely.
My mum is definitely one of mine. She's the strongest woman I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we underestimate often how the coping skills that we learn from the influential women in our lives as we grow up. So no, definitely, I think that's a wonderful one. And Karen, 79 Lux, do you have anyone?
Well, I mean, for sure, my public one is Michelle
Yeah.
Obama. The sort of, when they go low, we go high, and everything else pretty much that she's ever said. But I think, and I won't name names, but I have an amazing group, small but amazing group of female family and friends. And I think that in your real, many acquaintances, but small group of, really close people. And I think in your group, if you have somebody salty, somebody spicy, and somebody sweet, that's a really good set of ingredients for supportive, authentic friendship.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna have to go away now and think of who my salty, spicy, and sweet are.
Which one are you?
Good recipe for friendship and a supportive female community. And I think many of us, that's what's got us through over the last few years, hasn't it? And beyond that, in launching and building businesses, are those people that we can go to, both men and women, because they, definitely would be, some men that I would count among that number as well, to be able to go to and ask for help, or just have them as a sounding board and pick you up when you're feeling down. So thank you for that, Karen. Is there any key message, maybe around your businesses or the sector that you work in, or anything else that we might not have touched on today that you would like to each share with everyone? No pressure if there isn't, but just in case I haven't asked you the question that you've wanted to share an answer to.
I think for me, we've sort of touched on it, is just think outside the box.
Yeah.
In terms of retail, I think for me, certainly the pandemic has really shone a light on, and I think Karen ESM said this earlier, is you don't need to keep doing the same thing that you've been doing, because that just leads you and keeps you on that same path. It's to think outside the box. And certainly retailers, is obviously where we're trying to get into with our brands, is certainly sort of re-looking at that and reinventing themselves and thinking of other angles. So I think, definitely try and think outside the box. And obviously that goes for people who are looking to set up brands, or already have a brand that really has hit a point where they think, nothing much is happening. I think you've just got to take a true look at everything, think outside the box, and just see what else and what other opportunities are there.
Yeah. 100%. And also probably the other thing is just that focus on the quality of what you're doing. And that doesn't necessarily mean the most expensive thing that's out there. Yeah. Obviously, some startup brands wouldn't have the same budget as some of the larger brands we work with, but just quality in terms of something that you really believe in, something that's well made, well presented, clearly communicated, and you've got your kind of core values there, and just has a really strong message, and obviously looks great, which is kind of where we come in.
No, thank you. And I think that being true to your brand is really important, and not cutting corners in that regard, because I think many of us, we're eager to do things quickly, and sometimes that brand essence and what we really stand for can be lost along the way.
That's right. Yeah. And you could buy something, sometimes you could buy something maybe from an online source, but actually it might be a false economy because it takes forever to come, or it's poor quality, and that your brand, as Karen was saying, it's your baby, and you don't want something that's going to undo all your hard work just because it's poor quality, or it falls over in store, and it's just a mess. It's very easy to all of a sudden just turn someone off. So you want to make sure that you really protect that brand image.
And also, I was just going to add, if I may, just thinking about, when we're talking to brands, they always think more, we've got to have more lines, more SKUs, it's actually focus, it doesn't matter that it's a smaller selection of products, but make sure they're brilliant, make sure that they all executed in the right way, so that you're delivering and then grow. It's not all about size matters type thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's really refreshing advice. And Karen, do you have a key message you'd like everyone to leave with today? Doesn't have to be business related.
I guess sort of, whether we're talking about what I spend a lot of my time talking about: sugar consumption, alcohol consumption, the brands that you buy into, the people that you truly want to support, as opposed to, you know, sort of walking the walk. It's just to sort of have consciousness and elevation at the core of all your decision making, and I just think it will be better.
Thank you. I'm going to actually write that and put that on my pin board. I think that's really good advice for, you know, for personal life and for business, to just make conscious decisions, take a step back and think. That's really, what a wonderful point to end on. To all of you, thank you so much for making the time to join us today. These are very new, this series, so technically we're still kind of finding our way. So thank you very much for being game and for joining us today. And I'm looking forward to having many more conversations with you individually, as well as part of our community. This will be saved on LinkedIn under this event. So for anyone who's come in late, you will be able to view the whole discussion, but it will also be uploaded onto the Women's Chapter website under our video feed. You'll be able to view the entire conversation there. If you do have any other questions, or you want to get in touch with any of our speakers, they're all on LinkedIn and they were tagged in the content around this event. So please do feel free to reach out to them and get in touch with any questions that you might not have asked here in the public forum. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.